The Jewish-Roman Wars were a series of major conflicts between the Jewish people of Judea and the powerful Roman Empire. These wars took place mainly between 66 CE and 135 CE and deeply changed Jewish history, Roman policy, and the future of the land of Judea. They were not short or simple wars. Instead, they were long, painful struggles caused by political control, heavy taxes, religious tension, cultural clashes, and repeated acts of violence and rebellion. To understand these wars, we must first understand the background of Roman rule in Judea and the unique beliefs and struggles of the Jewish people at that time. Before Roman rule, the Jewish people lived in the land of Judea, which had a long religious and national history connected to the worship of one God and the laws of the Torah. For centuries, the Jews believed that their land was given to them by God and that they were chosen to live according to divine law. Because of this belief, foreign rule was always difficult for them to accept. Over time, many empires controlled Judea, including the Babylonians, Persians, and Greeks. Each empire left its mark, but Jewish religious life continued. In 63 BCE, the Roman general Pompey entered Jerusalem, and Judea came under Roman influence. At first, Rome allowed a level of self-rule. Later, Rome appointed client kings, the most famous being Herod the Great. Herod ruled from 37 BCE to 04 BCE. He was known as a great builder who expanded the Second Temple in Jerusalem, making it one of the most impressive religious buildings in the ancient world. However, Herod was also cruel and paranoid. Many Jews disliked him because he worked closely with Rome and was not seen as a true representative of Jewish faith. After Herod's death, his kingdom was divided among his sons, but this system failed. By 06 CE, Judea became a Roman province ruled directly by Roman governors, also known as prefects or procurators. These Roman officials were responsible for collecting taxes, keeping order, and enforcing Roman law. Unfortunately, many of them were corrupt and insensitive to Jewish customs. Heavy taxation hurt poor farmers and merchants. While Roman soldiers often showed disrespect toward Jewish religious practices, religion played a major role in the growing tension. The Romans worshipped many gods and believed the emperor himself should be honored as divine. Jews, however, believed in one God only and refused to worship idols or emperors. This refusal made the Romans suspicious and angry. While Rome usually allowed local religions, it demanded loyalty to the empire above all else. When loyalty and faith came into conflict, problems arose. Inside Jewish society, there were also deep divisions. Different groups had different ideas about how to respond to Roman rule. The Pharisees focused on religious law and daily life. The Sadducees, who controlled the temple, often cooperated with Rome to keep their power. The Essenes withdrew from society, seeking purity and spiritual life in the desert. Another group, the Zealots, believed that armed rebellion was the only acceptable response to Roman control. These internal divisions weakened Jewish unity and made conflict more likely. The First Jewish-Roman War, also called the Great Jewish Revolt, began in 66 CE. The immediate cause was a series of abuses by the Roman governor Gessius Florus, who seized money from the temple treasury and ordered violent actions against Jewish citizens. Protests turned into riots, and riots turned into rebellion. Jewish rebels attacked Roman garrisons and at first achieved surprising success. They defeated a Roman legion at the Battle of Beth Horon, which gave them hope that Rome could be beaten. Rome, however, could not allow such a rebellion to succeed. The Emperor Nero sent General Vespasian, along with his son Titus, to crush the revolt. The Roman army was large, disciplined, and experienced. Step by step, they reconquered Jewish towns in Galilee and Judea. Many cities were destroyed, and thousands of people were killed or enslaved. The most important and tragic event of the First War was the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE. Jerusalem was the religious heart of Judaism and the location of the Second Temple. Inside the city, Jewish rebel groups fought each other even while the Romans were outside the walls. Food supplies ran out, and famine spread. The Romans built siege ramps and broke through the defenses. When the Romans finally captured Jerusalem, they destroyed the Second Temple. This event was a disaster for the Jewish people. The temple was the center of worship, sacrifice, and national identity. Its destruction meant the end of the traditional temple-based religious system. According to historical accounts, the city was burned, and tens of thousands of Jews were killed. Many survivors were taken as slaves, and temple treasures were carried to Rome. The Arch of Titus in Rome still shows reliefs of Roman soldiers carrying sacred temple objects. Even after Jerusalem fell, the war did not immediately end. Some Jewish fighters escaped to desert fortresses, the most famous being Masada. Masada was a strong fortress built on a high rock plateau near the Dead Sea. Roman forces surrounded it and built a massive ramp to reach the walls. In 73 or 74 CE, when defeat was certain, the Jewish defenders chose mass suicide rather than capture. This tragic event later became a symbol of courage and resistance in Jewish memory. The First Jewish-Roman War officially ended with Roman victory. Judea was devastated. Large areas were destroyed, the population was reduced, and Jewish political independence was lost. However, Jewish religious life did not end. Without the temple, Jewish leaders began to focus on prayer, study of the Torah, and synagogue worship. This shift helped Judaism survive and adapt, even in exile. After the First War, Rome tightened its control. Jews were forced to pay a special tax called the Fiscus Judaicus, which went to a Roman temple instead of the Jerusalem temple. Roman soldiers were stationed throughout the region. Although there was no full-scale war for several decades, tension never disappeared. The Second Jewish-Roman War, known as the Kitos War, took place between 115 and 117 CE during the reign of Emperor Trajan. This conflict was different from the first. It was not centered only in Judea but spread across Jewish communities in the Roman Empire, including Egypt, Cyprus, and Mesopotamia. Jews in these areas rebelled, attacking Roman cities and populations. The reasons included local oppression, economic hardship, and anger over Roman policies. The Roman response was extremely harsh. Roman generals crushed the revolts with great violence. Entire communities were destroyed, and many Jews were killed. In Cyprus, Jews were banned completely after the revolt. Although Judea itself was less affected, the war increased Roman fear and distrust of Jewish populations everywhere. The most important and final conflict was the Third Jewish-Roman War, also known as the Bar Kokhba Revolt, which lasted from 132 to 135 CE. This revolt was led by Simon Bar Kokhba, a charismatic military leader who was believed by some to be the Messiah. The main cause of this revolt was Roman religious and cultural policy. Emperor Hadrian planned to rebuild Jerusalem as a Roman city called Aelia Capitolina and to build a temple to Jupiter on the Temple Mount. He also banned circumcision, which Jews saw as a direct attack on their faith. These actions caused outrage. Under Bar Kokhba, Jewish forces organized a strong rebellion. At first, they achieved success, driving Roman troops out of parts of Judea. For a short time, an independent Jewish state may have existed, coins were minted, and Jewish law was restored. Many Jews believed this was the beginning of national freedom. Rome responded with overwhelming force. Hadrian sent his best generals and legions. Instead of open battles, the Romans used slow and brutal methods, destroying villages, cutting off supplies, and hunting down rebels. The fighting was intense and deadly. Ancient sources described massive destruction and loss of life. By 135 CE, the revolt was crushed. Bar Kokhba was killed, and the last rebel strongholds fell. The consequences were devastating. Hadrian punished the Jewish people severely. Jews were banned from entering Jerusalem, except on one day a year. Judea was renamed Syria Palestina, an attempt to erase Jewish connection to the land. Many Jews were killed, sold into slavery, or forced to flee. This led to a wider Jewish diaspora, spreading Jewish communities across the Mediterranean and beyond. The Jewish-Roman wars had long-lasting effects. Politically, they ended any hope of Jewish independence for many centuries. Religiously, they transformed Judaism from a temple-centered religion into one based on study, prayer, and community life. This transformation allowed Judaism to survive without a homeland or central sanctuary. For Christians, the destruction of the temple also had deep meaning, as Christianity began to separate more clearly from Judaism during this period. For Rome, the wars showed both its strength and its cruelty. Rome proved it could crush even determined resistance, but the cost was high in lives and resources. The wars also increased Roman suspicion of minority groups who resisted cultural integration. In conclusion, the Jewish-Roman wars were not just military conflicts. They were struggles over identity, faith, power, and survival. They reshaped Jewish history forever and left scars that are remembered even today. Through suffering and loss, the Jewish people adapted and preserved their faith and traditions. These wars remind us how deeply religion and politics can collide, and how the consequences of such conflicts can last for thousands of years.